Yo, what's good, y'all? My name is Chris Shreve, aka CShreveTheProfessor. Welcome to another episode of Who Needs a Classroom podcast. As 2020 is wrapping up, and this will probably be my last episode of that calendar year, I was kind of debating different topics, and then I read an article this morning that kind of pointed me right to a kind of particular item that has been on my list for a while. So this will all fall under the header of Don't Be a Rapper. As many of you know who listen, and maybe some of you who don't, I am a rapper, and the podcast is kind of, a thing to kind of, I guess, dovetail some interests and kind of check some, boxes off that need to be checked by a person out here in the artist/media world. So, yeah, the article I read was basically kind of discussing how difficult it is to be an artist in kind of 2020 and the modern sphere of digital monoliths, or whatever term you might want to use to describe, the Googles, the Facebooks, the Twitters of the world, and the way they kind of dominate their playing field. So being a rapper is very much in that landscape. And so, and in this article, let me just see, a friend of mine, good friend of mine, Doc IT, from SOSA, Society of Spoken Art, one of my fellow ITs, Doc IT sent me this article, or sent my fellow ITs this article, and myself, and it may take me a second to find it, but basically it was just talking about the burden the modern kind of millennial artist has to maintain this social media presence, to, constantly basically be their own PR, to somewhere within all of this shenanigans, create music. This is, let's see, the article is called, the article itself is Art Has Been Brutalized. It's from a book, I guess. It's kind of a book promo. So the book is Death of the Artist. So look that up. So I guess I'm promoting them a little bit, but anyways, it was a good article, and it made me feel that some of my stresses and some of the things that I know don't feel kind of natural in putting out an album, in rolling out a single, in sometimes finding that way to put out your art to the world. Some of the things that feel very, very unnatural, it was good to feel an article that reaffirmed that I wasn't, it wasn't me that was feeling weird in some type of way. It's just weird in itself. And it gave examples within the article of, there was it was an unnamed band, lead singer for a band, but he talked about how his band decided to leave the label and essentially stop making music for a while. And it was basically because the article kind of boiled it down to the demands of being a musician were getting in the way of him making any music. And he kind of described it as he wanted to go and kind of dive deep in the music and kind of really figure out, it's his motivation and, do what artists do. And, he couldn't do that because he was consistently being dragged back to the surface. He felt like he always had to document and put this stuff on IG and put this over here and do this interview and do all the things that kind of got in the way of the creative process. Or, I guess you understand, they're not really the creative process, but they're part of putting your art out in the world, and that exhausted them to the point where it made it not even fun to make art anymore, and they felt like they weren't even making the music they wanted to make. So I've luckily never been in that situation. I've had a few opportunities that I've turned down, but I've always been in an independent situation, and so I can really make the art I want to make. But before, it was finding the time to make it. So now it's this whole new world of, what's it going to look like out there when we go out to perform, because you can't really perform right now. So whole new challenges right now, but there's some inherent challenges that have always been there for the independent musician. But the article also presented these kind of two contradictory point of views. If you were to talk to, folks from different perspectives about what it's like to be an artist, currently, and they kind of represented one perspective as kind of saying, "Oh, there's never been a better time. You've got amazing, production at a lower cost than ever. You've got distribution that's basically free. You've got all these different things, and then if you talk to the artist, it'd be a very different picture. The I talked about the kind of keeping up with the Joneses, the comparisons, things that inevitably happens in kind of the online social media world. I think artists feel that almost in a magnified way because those comparisons sometimes equal a slot at a festival or a radio premiere or whatever. If you're more especially in hip hop, it's very competitive, but I'm sure all other genres are as well. If you want to make this list, you got to be better than the next guy, type of thing. So I guess to some extent in a performance environment, there's kind of always that, but it feels like when the mediums are kind of mashed down to one. The article made the point that there was a time when if you wanted to read an article, it might have been in a magazine or maybe maybe in a newspaper, but the platforms were kind of more differentiated. To see art might involve a museum, to watch a movie might involve a theater, to watch TV might involve a TV set. But then as those mediums have gotten kind of meshed into one, that they're all on your phone or all kind of whatever your internet portal choice is, whether that's a TV or your phone or whatever tablet it might be, then you're competing with everything. It's kind of this big mashup. And so it was interesting to hear it talk about how your single isn't competing just with other rap singles even. I just put a rap album, shameless self-plug here, but I put an album out this month earlier called Ill Pro, and it's a production is all by my friend Luke McAllister, aka Ill Pro, or Il Flittant. We are Ill Pro together, Il Flittant, and originally we were going to tour it together. He's well toured over there in the UK. I'm well toured over here on the East Coast. We were going to swap, kind of make a collaborative album and then do tour swaps. Like he'd come over here and we'd do maybe, he already had a New York show lined up. I was going to help him do kind of the whole East Coast and then maybe go back over there and do that. And now touring is very different, but we still made the album, so that was cool. But to put out an album and to try to, oh man, all of what we, if you look at it, like what you should have done, if you did, we probably should have sent footage back and forth about him doing, and we probably still will, of him doing the beats and me doing raps and kind of mash up together and create this mashup video. There's kind of always stuff like that you should do. Even with this podcast is kind of me doing something extra, but even when I do it, I feel like I should always video it all so that I have the maximum amount of media to pull from, because I know I really should be better, and I have a bunch of it kind of backstocked, but I should go through and create these little clips that are maybe me, whatever, saying, I don't know, something that would make a good clip that's better than me just rambling. It's like good kind of condensed form, I don't know, something that can serve to help catch people's attention and say, hey, come listen to this whole podcast. Because by definition, I think a podcast is more long form and a little bit more deep dive. But then how do you utilize that on YouTube? It might be the 1 minute clip or the 30-second clip and then leads back to it. So I'm not always the best at that. I guess that's marketing and promotion and things like that. But that stuff sometimes is the difference maker for how you get out there. So a lot of the folks in this article were talking about essentially kind of how exhausting that can be to feel the need to constantly have a post on Instagram, which this year I kind of gave up on that. I felt like there was such bigger causes in the world. So I needed to focus on other things, maybe amplifying other voices sometimes, or having my post mean more, or just taking a break sometimes and figuring out how to kind of best put my energy into my own kind of close-knit circle, which was my house, is our house kind of at this point right now, which is needed right now. You have a 10-year-old son, he needs my energy, so that's a good place to put it. So I guess when I'm saying don't be a rapper, I guess I'm thinking of especially the commercial aspect of that word. A rapper is the commercial aspect of maybe the MC and the artist. The rap side of you that has to somehow put yourself in a box, create a single, create an album, roll it out with photos, all that stuff. That stuff is tired. That stuff is not, it's kind of worn out, played out. It's not that fun to, every time you put a song out that's cool and dope, to try to think of how to make a video for it. I mean, it makes you think, inherently that makes you think of songs in a certain way if that's what you're trying to do. it makes you think of how could this song, be more boxable in a certain way, through a lens, or or I guess you could look at it in different ways. How can I just do a performance that encapsulates the rawness of what I was trying to convey? Because a lot of what I'm trying to do is to perform this as one day when the world wakes up, and so I can get out there in this live space. Not wakes up, but when the world kind of, I guess I meant wakes up from more a metaphor. When it's kind of this slumbering beast, the world everybody's staying home. Everybody has to kind of not go do what they used to do. So it's kind of this sleeping giant of the world's productivity. That's all I meant. A lot of the world's becoming awake to the realities of what's going on. It'd be interesting to see how that plays out as the world opens up more. But one day I want to go out there and rock shows with y'all. So it's trying to figure out how to kind of maintain relevance. So from my rapper side, if I'm speaking from my rapper point of view, how am I maintaining relevance? How am I, because I literally want to have commercial value. I want to have, 100 people come see me and pay ticket prices to come see me in New Hampshire and Vermont and, Virginia and North Carolina, of course. So it's not easy to have market value in Austin, Texas, and also in Pensacola, Florida. But the goal is to take it from there to Atlanta, to Athens, to Savannah, and all over. So plug to all those cool cities that have shown me love. But I feel like we've had this Corona break. Some of those venues won't even exist, the ones that I had great relationships with. So it's how do you even recast yourself in this new landscape? That's really difficult. But that's why I've been trying to kind of maintain values, release music, somehow release visuals with that, which I haven't quite figured out yet. But I just got a camera, and so I'm going to try to have better and better visuals, because the more you can handle stuff in-house, that's kind of the whole idea with the podcast is this is really easily handled in-house, even though I'm bumbling my words and need way more editing and not practice, but, time than I sometimes have to put towards it. This is a good medium for me, because I can kind of, get it done, get it put out to y'all, keep it moving, that type of thing. So I think that's, to me, when I'm thinking about artists, I'm thinking about how do you help make it easier for the person to knock out these canvases of whatever their canvas is, whether that's, if it's recordings for a recording artist, whether it's paintings for a painter, whether it's, whatever that might be. How do they get their XPs up? How do they get their experience time? Because that's what it ends up boiling down to. And that's what this article I thought really did a good job of. It really kind of hit the kind of holistic point of view of how do we foster the arts in the community and in the world. Because when this great artist or some great art comes out, we might be quick to point to its value system, or how do we create benefactors that can help that person to make more art. But we really have to think about how did that artist become the artist they were. And sometimes that was having good teachers or having good experiences somewhere along the way in the community, or with other artists or whatever that might have been. But that implies a society that values art or education in certain ways. And so that implies this whole network of things that support the arts and things that help to foster that mindset. And so that is a whole bigger conversation. And so that was what I thought this article, which I would recommend, and I guess the book's probably good too, but the article was good. And it was definitely pointing to the greater, bigger picture of how monopolies are not going to work for us. When 3 or 4 or 5 huge media conglomerates kind of dominate the sphere within which we operate, when they change it to 280 characters, or when they change the size of the profile picture or the format of the post or the story, and that affects our art in these ways, that's kind of, when you think about it, kind of preposterous. That's kind of a really unnecessarily large ripple and wave to add to what we're doing. If they all of a sudden said, okay, the dominant format was 14-minute short films, all of a sudden you'd see that. And that would be dope as fuck. But that's not necessarily what's going to happen. It's going to go more and more soundbite. Chop it down farther and farther and farther. And my hip hop mind likes that, because I've been making a lot of beats and chopping stuff up, and it's fun to chop sounds down and then flip them around. But it's also cool to deep dive and figure out the layers of human thought, and to, when artists can really figure out what they want to do because they're on like, canvas number 97 of that summer, because for some reason that summer allowed them to function, then they're going to have more success, and that doesn't just magically happen. Sometimes somebody has to help make that happen, i.e. support that person's life, because life costs money. Your rent costs money, your food, you guys know this, you guys all live. There's a cost of life and living, and so to be an artist and just starve for your art is one thing. I mean, it's kind of romanticized, but for someone to be truly productive, sometimes, a platform has to be created to lift them up out of that and not just starve. So when I say don't be a rapper, it's real easy to be a starving rapper. I think rappers are kind of the 2020, jazz musician, of our century. It's real easy to be a rapper, to grab a microphone, to grab some recording equipment, to make some beats, to have a friend who makes beats, to jump onto SoundCloud, to put it out and be like, and then like if you're good and you put some time into it, it's not that difficult to be good at it, I don't think. But then to really separate yourself and it's like everything else, to separate yourself and become a master of the craft is much different. But it's fun. It's a fun environment to be in. So there's a lot of rappers out here, obviously, but it's difficult. And because of that amount of rappers out here, and because the bar is lower for having the camera, the recording equipment, the everything, then there's a lot of rappers and the competition level is high. And if you're not built for that competition, then you're not going to have much success. I guess I'm saying don't be a rapper, not from the essence of the competition, because that's always been here, but more from the essence of being an artist is rough in 2020. It's real easy to put your art out there and have millions of people see it, but it's a lot more difficult to make some type of money off of it. The monetization is more difficult than ever these days. Getting your music out, your art out, your pictures out to the masses may be easier than ever. But do you get paid anything at all when they end up on the IG Explore page? Do you monetize that in some way? If not, then we're kind of at the same old place of artists kind of getting robbed blind by society. But yet we're so needed, and we're needed more than ever. So I'm going to close this out with a kind of a shout out and a thank you, and a huge, huge shout of respect to my wife. She has been on the front lines this whole year. I want to basically say, the healthcare workers of our country make it go around, especially, they'd always have, but now more than ever. My wife is a nurse practitioner. She's been a nurse since she was 18 years old at all levels, LPN to RN to, FMP, which is a cool ass, FMP is a real cool set of initials right there. Yeah, I was going to post everybody's posting their Spotify year-end reviews. I was going to post hers. It was like she got the vaccine the other day. I was gonna holler at Lupe IT because she was one of the first frontline people to get the vaccine, and I was gonna post her stat line. Kind of everybody's posting their Spotify end of year stats. I was gonna post the end of year stats. I think I might have to post this on Spotify, or on IG. Like her stats. I need to post her active weeks, her active hours worked. She had 2 full exposures, at close range in her office. She, she went 9-0 on COVID tests the whole year. And then finally she got her 1 vaccine. And I was going to do if I did the little MasterCard bullshit where it was priceless, it'd be 2 roommates, which is me and her son, my son, our son. I was going to say, 2 very happy roommates because she got her vaccine the other day. So shout out to my wife. Shout out to the healthcare workers all over the country who are getting the vaccine. And this is the largest human science cohort ever. If you think about it, all 7 billion, however many billion of us on the planet Earth are the main cohort. And then now this new cohort is the vaccine folks. Is wild. This is a wild time to be alive. Um, so I applaud all you humans who are doing your thing. There's so many different versions of what that means. I was talking about art and how the artists can find their way. My wife is my benefactor these days. I mean, I took off school or left school, left teaching to go be a full-time rapper, which obviously was a crazy idea, but I didn't know I didn't know 2020 was going to happen. I literally left school before that happened. This crazy stuff happened. So, whew. Woo. There you go. Hope you don't got that. You don't be sick with that. No. There's a live Shreve Sneeze Fest. What up? Anyways, my wife is my benefactor. Basically, school was overwhelming to me at the time when I left. I knew I was teaching. I had taught public health for 12 years. For 12 years, I had been a teacher in the public sphere with all these school shootings. I was kind of done, man. I had watched my school make errors of judgment that devalue my contributions to our programs, despite huge expansions of things that I paved the way for. And without getting into that, sometimes your organization, your institution doesn't value you or doesn't quite put you in the direction you need to go towards. I'll close it like this with that point of view. Before I left, we had this new building. I had literally helped this building get rolling. I wanted to get a good office. I had been there for a while. I deserved a good office. I had helped this deal, the whole thing go through. And anyways, I wanted a window, and they kind of held that from happening at somehow. I don't even know. But I got a window. Somehow they put a window on my office, but there was a window. I got this office with a window, but the window literally looked at an exit sign. Like, that's the only thing I could see through my window was exit. Like, 'cause it was near the elevator. And so if I looked out my window, it said exit. So I ended up exiting. I only was in that office for like a semester because it was too much. Because I didn't want to be there. So anyways, I left school before all this crazy stuff happened. Even though it was public health, that was my schooling. That's what I taught, was public health. I didn't see this coming. I didn't know we was going to have that. I didn't know I was going to teach that. I knew coronavirus was there because I'm public health, but I didn't know it was going to be like that. I just knew I was done teaching. I think the school shooting that happened in Charlotte in maybe like 2018 in the winter, that threw me off because that was our school. Because I was like, Appalachian State is basically UNC Boone. And so UNC Charlotte had a shooting, and then they canceled all of our exams. Like, the exams were canceled. And somewhere in here, I stopped caring about exams and grades a little bit. And that was like proof to me that grades didn't matter. Because the year before, they had canceled finals because of, I think it was snow. And I was like, man, y'all really don't care about finals. So I started to change my ideas in academia, and I realized they were contradictory to some of the ways, the values they held. Anyways, that's a neither here nor there story, but the conflict of all that, school shootings and academic, freedom of classroom, etc., equaled me wanting to leave academia, but it equals, as I ramble, it equaled me falling back because my wife is able to provide at the level she is, because nursing is a great profession. Y'all, look into nursing, look into healthcare. You will be needed. I've been telling my students, I told my students forever, because America is so obese, because America has so much diabetes and heart disease and smokes so much, although we did way better on that in the last decade. But because of our social ills and the difficulties we have with taking care of our bodies, from stress levels, from all the things we do wrong, healthcare workers will always be needed. You will be needed. So I'm married to one. So I'm very thankful she's had the vaccine. I'm thankful she's been able to allow me to do my art. Somehow for a long time I did it in conjunction with being a full-time worker and teacher. So that's why this exists now, is to teach y'all, or to bring the residue of what I used to teach to y'all. So thank y'all for listening. I rambled a bunch at the end, but if you listen for the whole thing, that's what you catch in the long version. So we deep dive sometimes, right? Anyways, yeah. good riddance to 2020. I think Donald Trump, that might be one of the only times I'm going to mention his name for a minute. Anyways, is proud to be gone in like 2 weeks. And then, not that that changes how America and its doctrines function, but I think having a different baton holder at the top really will change the way things operate. So I'm interested to see how Biden starts to rock it. So let's see what's going on and give the man a chance. In the meantime, welcome in 2021 responsibly. Find your way to create your little bubble. That's difficult, but, it may just be your family. Go get you some bubbly, get you some sparkling grape juice or apple juice if you have to, and just celebrate that we survived, we're alive as 2021 comes in. That's a beautiful thing. If you rap, go out there and try to earn the right to be called an MC. Don't worry about being a rapper. Rapping is overrated. I've been a rapper for a minute. Don't be a rapper. Go out there and be an MC. If you ain't around the crowds, be an artist. You ain't trying to sell shit anyway. Don't be a rapper. Anyways, who needs a classroom? You do. I do. We do. Shit. Peace, y'all.